Welcome to the Louie Belina Show here on a Friday on the Zone, 1150 AM, 93.7 FM. The Louie Belina Show is brought to you by CC Electric, built on faith, family, and community. It is CC Electric. This is Caleb Rappolee here on a Friday, as I've been guest hosting every Friday in June for Louie, having a lot of fun here on the Zone. Lots to talk about still going on in the world of sports. I know that the summertime can be a little slower, but still plenty going on with the World Cup. NBA and NHL finals just wrapping up last week, and the College World Series finals are this weekend as well, so plenty going on. Going to have some baseball talk here in a minute. Coming up at 11:35, we will have a listen-in. Mike Elko on Greg McElroy's college football podcast. That's a two-part listen-in, 11:35 and 12:35. Coach Elko and his staff have been on a roll recently on the recruiting trail. Lots of big commits coming in every day. Just yesterday, the number one ranked linebacker in the 2027 class, Caden Henderson out of Florida, committed to the Aggies, one of the biggest recruits in Texas A&M history if he does end up signing. But that is a huge, huge impact that could end up having for Texas A&M. Mike Elko has continued to show that he does have what it takes to be one of the best head coaches in the SEC. Texas A&M coming off of one of the best seasons in program history last year. Definitely going to have a tough row to hoe this year to follow up on that with all of the players that left to the draft, but definitely very excited to see what the Aggies can do. Ended up with the 10th best recruiting class this year in 2026, according to 24/7 Sports, and are currently the number one team in the 2027 class. 2 5-stars and 13 4-stars committed to Texas A&M. Really excited to see where this ends up going. So some other headlines. A little bit of a sadder note in the MLB world as Mike Trout goes on the injured list. Mike Trout, one of the best players of our generation, and it's just been year after year, especially in the 2020s, we haven't got to see him as much as we would like. When he's on the field, he's always electric. I was looking at the stats earlier today. Hasn't played in more than 130 games in a season since 2019. Only 2 times has he played more than half a season in that span. Total in the 2020s, he's played about 55% of the games that the Angels have played. In those games, he has an OPS plus of 150. For those of y'all who don't know how OPS plus works, it's basically 150 means he's 50% better than the average player. He's averaged about 40 home runs a season. If you took his stats and extrapolated them over a full season, he would have hit about 40 homers every year. So yeah, we've just been robbed of seeing him play baseball, and it's one of the sadder stories. Kind of similar to Ken Griffey Jr. back in the 90s, one of the best players in the 90s, and then couldn't stay healthy in the 2000s. It's kind of similar to what we're seeing with Trout, probably the best player of the 2010s. And haven't been able to see him on the field too much this year in this decade of the 2020s. He'll be 35 in August, so coming up on 35 is a pretty big milestone for a Major League Baseball player. Back half of the 30s, a lot of players see the decline start. He's played a lot of games this year. Had only missed 1 game up until this hamstring injury, and hamstring injuries, have a tendency to linger. So hopefully he rests up. I'm going to guess that he'll probably be out until at least the All-Star break. So he rests up, comes back healthy. Would love to see him play some more baseball. I would really love to see him on a team that played postseason baseball, but Artie Moreno will never trade him. Some more, a little bit of an upbeat note here. The 2026 Home Run Derby will be going to a completely new system. For the last, I think, 10 years, they've had the timer, but Going to a swing-based format for this year's competition at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia on July 13th. And this will be the first Derby to stream live on Netflix, which I don't really know how I feel about that. But instead of the timer, it will be swings. Finite number of swings in each round for each player. 20 swings in round 1, and then 15 in rounds 2, and 15 again in the final round. So all swings will count against a player's swing allotment, whether or not it's a home run or an out. And the only caveat to that is if you hit a homer on your final swing, you get to keep swinging until you don't hit a homer. So in theory, this could go on for an infinite amount of time, just like the out system of years past. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. They just keep changing up the home run derby. It seems like every year they make tweaks to the format. This is definitely the biggest change that we've seen in a long time. So all 8 hitters will be in a single pool for round 1. The players with the top 4 home run totals from that round will advance to the semifinals. So it's not bracket play until you get to the semifinals, and then they'll be seeded based on their first round homer totals and face off head-to-head to determine the 2 finalists. Ties in the first round will be broken up by home run distance. So the player that hits the longest homer among the tied participants will advance. And then in the following rounds, the semifinals and finals, ties will be broken up by a 3-swing swing-off until a winner is determined. So it'll be interesting to see what players get to showcase their power. I would really love to see Yordan Alvarez in the home run derby. I don't know when the last time we saw an Astro in the home run derby was. Had to have been a long time. I would have really loved to see Jose Altuve in his prime participate in the home run derby, but I don't know that he's played in more than like 1 or 2 All-Star games just because of health. The Astros have always been very cautious about that. With the All-Star week, they really like to use that to rest up. Yordan, the only Astro that looks like he's going to get voted into the All-Star game. Now, whether or not some other players will get selected by the various committees that decide those things, we'll see. I think Spencer Arrighetti will definitely have a great shot at getting selected for the pitching staff. But Yordan, the only one that's leading in any of the position groups right now, actually has the most votes of any player in the American League. And second in MLB to only Shohei Ohtani. So definitely going to at least see him make the team. Really hope we get to see him play in that game for at least an at-bat or 2. I no way he's going to play the field, but would love to see him hit in that iconic setting at the All-Star game. Some other changes that may be coming to Major League Baseball. With the collective bargaining agreement between Major League Baseball and the Players Association, that's going to expire this December. And for those of y'all who don't remember what happened the last time we had a CBA expire, there was a lockout up until March of that season, and it started a little late. So really hoping that doesn't happen again, but I think we're seeing a lot more negotiating during the season than we did last year. Or not last year, but the last time this happened. So, but the MLB has made another large proposition. This time it's about the draft. So they are proposing that high school players would no longer be eligible to be selected in the amateur draft. In fact, anyone under 20 years old by September 1st of the draft year would not be eligible, which would take a lot of draft-eligible juniors off the board as well from the current format. They also want the draft to reduce the number of rounds, which has been a theme of the last 10 years. Back in 2011, it was 50 rounds and then dropped to 40 rounds. And then with COVID, I believe it was 5 rounds in 2020, and then it's been 20 rounds in the years since then. They want it dropped from 20 down to 12. They also want hard draft slots, so a drafted player would have no ability to negotiate his signing bonus, which is definitely going to be a big no-no in the eyes of the MLBPA. They want more freedom to trade picks, which I think would be really interesting if the MLB implemented that rule. in every NBA and NFL trade, there's almost always some picks involved. It's almost never player for player like it is in the MLB. So that would definitely be pretty interesting. I don't really know how teams would value those picks, as, it takes usually at least a couple years, even for a very talented college player to get to the major leagues. There have been a few exceptions to that, like Paul Skeens, but the norm is at least a couple years in the minors before they come up to the bigs. So I don't know how much immediate value those picks would have in trades, but it definitely would be interesting to see how teams handle that. Under these rules that were proposed, you would not be allowed to trade a pick that was in a future year, so you wouldn't be able to see what a lot of the NFL and NBA teams do, trading draft picks 5 years out or 2 or 3 years out. It would have to be the year following the year that it was traded. Basically, you'd be able to trade picks up until the draft, and then after that draft would be when you could start trading for the next year's draft. And again, this is just proposed by MLB. It's definitely not going to happen in this form because the MLBPA Players Association hasn't had a chance to counter this yet. They're definitely going to be opposed to it because this is very much going to be cost-cutting for the teams, as not having high school players, some of those players usually command higher bonuses than even the college guys. So it's not going to happen in this form. I don't think they'll be able to convince the MLB's Players Association to make high school players ineligible for the draft, because that would make college baseball basically a minor league system for MLB. And I think that would definitely change college baseball. I don't know how much for the worse it would change specifically college baseball, because you would have a lot more high-level players. It would definitely take away opportunities from other players that only get to play college ball because of the amount of high-level high school players that go to the draft immediately. So I think it would create less opportunities for players, which is not good. But the overall level of play, especially at the D1 level, would probably be higher. So we'll see how this impacts anything. But again, there's no telling how much of this will even get approved by the MLBPA. But it would definitely add a very interesting wrinkle to the MLB draft. It would make a lot of players, the contracts wouldn't be as big because players wouldn't be able to get to a free agency as fast. You have to be, I think it's 6 years on your rookie deal once you get to the majors before you can elect for free agency. And with 2 years in the minors, that would leave a lot of college guys, if they get drafted at 22, they wouldn't even be free agents until they're about 30 years old. So we wouldn't see as many mega contracts. Teams wouldn't have to pay as much money for free agents. It's very much just all coming back to money in this scenario. So that's definitely going to be something that the MLBPA is going to fight back on, as they've already had a big reaction to the proposed salary cap that the MLB wants, that the owners want anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. This would fundamentally change everything about Major League Baseball and the minor league system and college baseball if high school players were ineligible for the MLB draft. The impact would go, it would be a very large ripple effect. So interested to see how that plays out with the CBA negotiations. The collective bargaining agreement will again expire December 1st of this year. Hopefully there's not a lockout again for 2027. Could delay the start of the season. We will see. I don't think that'll happen just because both sides have started to come out with positions on different issues. So I'm hoping that they'll have more time to negotiate this time around and we won't have that big delay. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. We are inside the Charles Schwab studio here on the Louie Belina Show. Low cost, full service, and best of all, local. That's Schwab. Visit Mark in College Station and experience a modern approach to wealth management, or find them online at schwab.com/College Station. Charles Schwab and Company Incorporated, member SIPC.
Music, history, and some occasional sports. Chip Howard. Weekdays 4 to 6 on the Zone 1150 AM. Number 1 and 93.7 FM.
Welcome back to the Louie Belina Show here on the Zone 1150 AM, 93.7 FM. Caleb Rappolee here on a Friday morning. And we've got some more MLB to talk about. I want to get into some of the recent Astros news. Hunter Brown finally did get back on the mound for the big league club on Tuesday. Solid start for him. I think it was 5 2/3 innings, only 1 earned run. So great to see Hunter back out on the mound. And I think that can make a really big impact for the Astros. Again, it's been a weird year in the AL West specifically. Right now, the Mariners are the only team that are even above 500 at 39 and 37. So leading the AL West. The A's in second place, a game and a half back, 1 game under 500 at 37 and 38. Followed by the Rangers, 3 games back. The Astros, 4 games back. And then the Angels in the basement at the moment, 9 games behind the Mariners. 30 and 46 for the Angels and just lost Mike Trout. So rough year for the Halos and their fan base. But the AL West continues to be wide open. The Mariners are 5-5 in their last 10. The A's have looked really good at times this year. They've looked really bad at times this year. And kind of the same thing with the Rangers and Astros. The Astros, I think it was a couple weeks ago that they started to hit their stride, and you heard that Hunter Brown was going to be coming back soon. And then they lost a few games in a row. Kind of killed all that momentum. But I think they might be building it back up again. They've taken 2 series in a row now, as over the weekend, 2 wins on the road in Kansas City, and then the midweek series with the Tigers, 2 out of 3 again in Detroit. So 2 straight wins for the Stros, 4-2 and 4-2 both nights. Coming back home tonight against the Guardians at 7 o'clock. That'll be an interesting matchup, and Jose Altuve soccer jersey is the promotion, so that's pretty cool with the World Cup going on in Houston and all around the country. We will talk about that later, don't worry. Going to get to some World Cup news and notes and some just fun things going on there. That Guardians game, Tatsuya Imai scheduled to go for Houston. It's been an up and down year for him. He was a part of the combined no-hitter that the Astros threw. I believe that was about a month ago now. He's had an interesting season. The numbers aren't pretty. 6.43 ERA. But he has looked better recently, I would say, than he did at the start of the season. We'll see where it goes with him. It's his first major league season after coming over from Japan. 28 years old, still a lot to learn for him. I don't know that we should have both him and Kai Wei Tang in the starting rotation just because they've both been struggling a lot. Now, we did finally get Mike Burrows into the bullpen, which I think is a good move. And he's the only starter for the Astros this year that hadn't missed a start because of injury. But he just had a really rough showing. So moving him to the bullpen, we'll see how that works out for him. I think it could be good. Get some confidence back, maybe some low leverage situations. And we could see him back in the bullpen later in the year or back in the rotation later in the year, excuse me. Or maybe he is just a bullpen guy. Hopefully not, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes with him. Pitchers are weird. That's the main thing with that. It's really hard to predict what a pitcher's going to do appearance to appearance. One guy that has had a huge impact is Peter Lambert. He's come out of nowhere. Like I hadn't heard of him before this season, probably because he'd spent his entire career, or his entire major league career anyway, with the Rockies prior to this. Entire professional career. He was drafted by them back in 2015 in the second round. Made his major league debut in 2019. Made 19 starts, a 7.25 ERA. Not only was he had to pitch a lot of his games in Coors Field, but that was also the juiced ball year. So obviously that ERA is not going to be super pretty. 23 and 24, he definitely contributed to that pitching staff, and then didn't play in the majors at all in 2025. The Astros acquired him back in October on a minor league contract. And then he didn't make the opening day roster this year, but with all the pitcher injuries that we've had this season, he got his opportunity, and he's made the most of it. In 11 starts, he's got 6 wins, 4 losses, a 3.23 ERA, which I think is, of any Astro pitcher that has that many innings, I think he's up there in terms of ERA. Obviously, Spencer Arrighetti's been really great as well, but Lambert's been a revelation for this team that needed it. With almost everybody on this pitching staff is hurt right now or has been hurt at some point this season. We've got Josh Hader back. We've got Hunter Brown back. Both of those are huge. Hunter Brown, a 1.10 ERA in the 3 starts that he's managed to make this season. If he can stay healthy for the rest of the year, and Josh Hader continues to look how he's looked, I think he's only had 1 appearance of his 7 this season that he's given up any runs, and that was on a solo homer a few days ago. He's looked fantastic. This pitching staff looks like they're starting to turn a corner. If the offense can start to look like they looked in April, when they were, I think, a top 5 offense in the league, and the pitching staff starts to look better like they have and continue to do, hopefully, with Arrighetti, Lambert, and Brown holding down that rotation, which is just so funny because obviously Hunter Brown's the ace, 3rd place in Cy Young voting last year. But Arrighetti and Lambert, neither of them made the opening day roster on merit. Like, not just because they weren't hurt. They didn't make the roster, which personally I was really surprised when they sent Arrighetti to AAA, but that's beside the point. They didn't make the roster, not because they were hurt, because they, in the opinion of the Astros coaches and GM, it wasn't the right decision for them to be on the opening day roster. And now they are on the team and absolutely dealing. They have Spencer Arrighetti has the most wins on the team with 7. Peter Lambert is second with 6. And then the next highest is 4 different pitchers tied with 3 wins. So obviously they've been pretty much undisputed the 2 best pitchers on the team. And really happy it's really fun when guys like Peter Lambert at age 29 finally have their breakout year after over 10 years in professional baseball. That's pretty insane to say. But yeah, great story. And he's been a revelation for the Astros. On the offensive side, the bottom half of the lineup has been pretty rough. So if the Astros do start to look better, get fully back into contention, they're only 4 games out of the division, so they're in contention just by existing, basically. But they definitely need to trade for some offensive help, particularly in the outfield. The outfield's been rough this year just because, having to play Bryce Matthews in center field as much as they have is just kind of unfortunate. And then obviously Cam Smith in right field has been great defensively now that he's figured it out. But we have 2 guys that have played a lot of innings in the outfield that were, their natural positions were third base, second base, and they really haven't hit that well either. And then with Jake Myers, again, great defensively. The outfield problems have not really been defensively, which is surprising with how many of them have just straight up had to learn outfield in the big leagues. But defense hasn't been the problem. But none of them have been able to hit well this year. I think Cam Smith has probably been the best hitter of the outfielders, and that's a .223 batting average, so not really anything to write home about. The best Astros hitters have been Jordan, obviously. He's pretty much the MVP frontrunner right now, in my opinion, with 24 homers in only 75 games, hitting .325. All of that ranks among the leaders in the MLB. I think Jordan should be, especially if the Astros manage to make the playoffs, Jordan has to be the MVP. There's no discussion. Christian Walker also has had a resurgence this year, 18 homers and 810 OPS while playing great defense at first base. This is the Christian Walker that the Astros thought they were signing about a year and a half ago, and last year was rough, but he has looked so much better this season. It's been great to see. I really hope he can keep that up. Having a first baseman that's not a hole in the lineup has been great. 35 years old, though, so we'll see how long he can keep this up. And the Astros still, even though this is the healthiest they've been all season, there's still 10 players on the IL. A lot of them are supposedly nearing a return. Christian Javier, I think he made his 4th minor league rehab start yesterday, or maybe I think it might be today, and he will be returning from the 60-day injured list hopefully later this month. Braden Shoemake has taken part in baseball activity after, I think he tore or strained his adductor. I'm not sure when exactly he's supposed to be back. They haven't officially announced that, but he has been participating in baseball activities, working his way through a running progression. Lamont Wade had a hamstring strain. I think that was a couple weeks ago now, and that was only about 5 games into his Astros career when he looked great. That was that outfield offensive help that I was talking about. But then he went down with that hamstring strain. I honestly hope, even if he thinks that he can play soon, I would like for them to just wait till the All-Star break. You don't want to take any chances with a hamstring injury. That's the kind of thing, like I was talking about earlier with Mike Trout, it can linger. We saw it last year with Caden Sorrell on the Aggie baseball team. He missed, I think, like the first half of the season with just a hamstring strain. It's one of those things that sometimes just won't go away. So I would really prefer that they hold Lamont Wade out until he can play outfield again at least 90%. And then Nick Allen as well, expected to be back sometime later this month after, again, hamstring discomfort. All of those guys have contributed this year. Braden Shoemake especially has been a lot of fun to watch, as he is a former Aggie baseball player getting to play back home in Houston. But it looks like, knock on wood, the Astros injury luck might be starting to turn. Again, later on in the show on the D4 Land Services Hotline, we're going to have former Aggie baseball player Travis Chestnut. That's going to be a great conversation. That's coming up at noon. We're going to hit a break. On the other side of this, we're going to have a listen-in with Mike Elko on Greg McElroy's college football podcast, so stay tuned for that. This is the Louie Belina Show on The Zone.
Bryan College Station's home for champions with March Madness, the Super Bowl, and the College World Series. The Zone. 1150 AM and 93.7 FM.
Welcome back to the Louie Belina Show here on The Zone. The Louie Belina Show is presented by CC Electric. Caleb Rappolee here, guest hosting on a Friday. And a reminder, if you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150, the D4 Land Services hotline, or you can text in your thoughts and drop it into the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox. Texas Mobile One Lube Express, where they say be good to your car, and it'll be good to you. How do you be good to your car? Take it to Texas Mobile One Lube Express. Right now, we have a listen-in. Coach Mike Elko of Texas A&M football talked to Greg McElroy on his college football podcast.
Mike Elko is a man that's done something at A&M that 2 years ago, many within the SEC footprint would have said, yeah, no way that's going to happen. No way that happens that quickly. He took a program that went 8-5 his first year, which is good, right? Rebuilding year. Everyone was, for the most part, patient. And then year number 2 takes the exact same program to 11-2 to the college football playoff for the first time in school history, to Kyle Field hosting a college football playoff first round game, which is something that A&M fan base had been dreaming about since the day they joined the SEC, and he did so quietly, not with some inheritance, not with some, tons of 5-star guys, but the second he walked in the door, there was immediate buy-in. And yes, there were a lot of people that had been looking at Mike Elko for a long time and said, this guy's a great coach, right? What a great coach. I think that when he was hired at A&M, a lot of people said, all right, this is it. This is the guy. And he just went out there and handled it, man. He won. And now he's walking to year number 3 with a rebuild offensive line, a couple new coordinators, a quarterback that's eager to take the next step. And he is head coach Mike Elko of the Texas A&M Aggies, and we're happy to have him here on Always College Football. Coach, I want to go back to December of 23, right? Because I think people forget how fast things moved. I mean, you walk into College Station, and within 2 years, you're hosting a college football playoff game at Kyle Field. So when you look back at that first year, kind of the foundation year, the culture install year, what's the thing that you are most proud of that nobody outside the building saw?
Yeah, I think probably it's how quickly the mindset flipped into, kind of embracing this idea of being a blue collar program, embracing the idea of, being a little bit more quiet and a little bit more productive. I think that was kind of a lot of what we preached when we got here. And you never know how fast kids are going to take on to it. And I think, some of the early success we had year one certainly helped. Obviously, the success we had year two helped a little bit more, but probably just most proud of how quick the mindset has shifted in and around our building.
Is that something you referenced doing it now with so many new faces and the buy-in and guys maybe pointing different directions and having outside influence? Is it harder now? I mean, you've been around a while now. Is it harder now to get that buy-in than maybe it was in the past?
I've said this before. I think one of the things that has changed for sure is, we are dealing now with the Y generation, right? You have to do a really good job of explaining to them why, and in a lot of ways, why it's beneficial to them, and that's okay. But just why is this the right way to think? You want us to change. Why? And I think we have kind of embraced that idea. I think it's probably been about 8-9 years that it's kind of shifted like this a little bit in my mind. And I think a lot of people put it on the portal or put it on. I just think it's just been a shift in the generation, right? And that's happened a lot. Our generation was different. It's just kind of how it is. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think we spent a lot of time just kind of changing mindset through an understanding of why is it beneficial? Why is it better to do things this way?
I'm sure you asked your coach why back in the day. I should have asked Coach Saban why.
We were I say this to kids all the time and they laugh. We were the because generation.
Yeah, exactly.
We did it because somebody told us we had to.
Ours is the when. When do you want me to do that? Now? No perfect. Let's go.
No doubt. That worked great for me.
Look, you've been consistent about this since day one, and you've talked about that the amount of players that a program puts in the NFL is kind of the truest measure of how healthy a program really is, right? And you look at the past cycle and how many players went to the combine. I think it was 13. I mean, that's a program record and an elite number by any standard in college football. So walk me through how that actually happens.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is who you bring into the program. I think one of the things that we talked a lot about, and the reason why that was such a messaging point for me is I think for years people felt like A&M was bringing the right types of people in here, but the output was never saying that, right? The output on the NFL draft was never saying we were doing it the right way, for whatever reason, right? And so I think a lot of it started with who we bring into the program, what drives them, what motivates them, where are they trying to really get to, and then obviously changing a lot of things internally, changing the development, changing the weight room structure, changing things we're doing in nutrition across the board so that kids see progress every step along the way. And ultimately, that's how you build a program that becomes known for developing players to be what they're capable of being. And I think that's what we had to get to, right? We had to stop being a place where, it was cool to play games and then you didn't really do much more. We had to be a place where it's cool to play in front of these fans, but for the rest of the year, we're going to work our tail off so that we can get the results in front of those fans that we really want to get.
Well, to be so successful from a developmental standpoint, how do you do that in 2 years? Because I would think that'd take 4 years to get guys where you want them to go. How do you accelerate that development?
Yeah, probably the modern era shifts that a little bit. You look at some of the guys who were able to go out and get in the transfer portal, and, and that changes things. And then you can point to some of their growth. A kid like Cassius Howell who comes here and isn't projected to be a high draft pick and leaves as the SEC Player of the Year and a second-round pick. A kid like Casey Concepcion, who is talented, but people aren't really sure what he's going to be, and then he leaves as a first-round pick. Then you just look at some of the high school kids the same way. And so I think in the past, it took you, 4 years to get kids through your cycle. I think the transfer portal has kind of shifted that, where now, we got some kids that have been in here for 2 years, kids that have been here for 1 year. I think that helps boost those numbers a little bit quicker.
And you do have to go through a little bit of turnover this year, and for good reason. Your coordinators go on and have success in other spots, but you decide to promote from within. And I want to start on offense with Holman Wiggins, who's now taken over as your OC. He's been on your staff for a while. I know it's been very collaborative.
Yeah.
But tell me what that continuity, kind of keeping that system intact, keeping those relationships intact, what does that give the program from an edge standpoint heading into this season?
Yeah, I think it starts with Marcel. I think when you've got a quarterback coming back for his third year, it quickly becomes not his third year if everything's new and different, right? And so if he has to learn a new system, new terminology, new way to think about things, what does that do to him? And then, we've got a great staff. I talked a lot about this offseason. And so if you go out from the outside, you certainly can't bring in one person. You're going to have to bring in him and some of the people that he wants to bring with him. And how does that all fit? And then just honestly, and this is the biggest reason why you do it is, you don't lose sight of what you have internally. There's this world we live in now where everything outside has to be better than everything you have. And the new flashy thing is what sells on social media. But sometimes the best thing that you have is right there. And Holman Wiggins is a guy who has a tremendous pedigree. He's been phenomenal developing pass catchers. He's been phenomenal building passing games over his time. And yes, I think you look at him and you say, okay, this is the best option we have. And he's going to do a phenomenal job. And so far it's been great.
Well, I think what's funny is Marcel, genuinely, he had a great year last year. There's a lot of progress made last year. You don't go to South Bend and do what he did. You don't go to Death Valley and do what he did and win 11 games. And everyone comes out of it with all these question marks, and understandable.
Right.
You've seen the leap from year 1 to year 2 as a part-time to a full-time. Now he's going into year 3, first full-time as a starter. So when you watch him this offseason, what are some of the things you're seeing in his game right now that tell you the best is still ahead?
Yeah, I think you sum it up this way a little bit, right? He went from a guy who you guys were asking me if he could throw a football to a Heisman contender, right? And that all happened because of the growth and the development he had from year 1 to year 2. Now I think you say, okay, as he goes from year 2 to year 3, there's certainly areas he needs to be more consistent. But I think you saw him at his high levels playing like an elite quarterback in college football. And so his challenge is, okay, there were dips for sure. There were missed throws, missed opportunities, things of that nature. How do I get those out so that I can play consistently at the level I'm capable of? And that's been his task this offseason. I think he's handled it really, really well.
I love, I said, you guys, come on, man. Like, I'm a March Creek guy. I also
you crossed the line, Greg. Don't forget that. You're on the middle side of the world now.
Fair enough. I also noticed that you guys, I give it one more season, full season in College Station before it's y'all. I think it's going to be very close. This is the year, for sure. Now, in front of Marcel, there's a little bit of a rebuild going on along the offense. I know you loved your depth last year.
Yeah.
I know you had some of those guys that played in roles, but you go out and you address it in the portal. You bring in some guys. But what is this kind of group? What are we expecting from this group, knowing it was such a position of strength last season?
Yeah, I think obviously it's the biggest challenge. I think both sides of the ball, we had 7 kids drafted on the O-line and D-line, and so that's great when you're selling the program. But internally, it also means you have 7 NFL players who aren't playing anymore. And how are you going to fill those holes? And so we felt like it was really important to go out into the portal and grab guys that had played in this league and had started in this league. And so, we got 4 guys who are SEC starters. They just weren't SEC starters at Texas A&M last year, to mix with what we think is a really, really bright and promising young group who is developing. And I think what that has done is created a lot of internal competition to where everybody's game is raising. And that's hopefully what you get. And so as we go into fall camp, now bringing the continuity together, bringing the comfort of playing with each other together, I think that'll be the big challenge as we move forward.
As a guy that is so honed in on the defense side of the football, of course, naturally, you still call a lot of the plays on the defense side. You put the plan together on the defense side. And now Lyle Hemphill will be right there alongside you, who I know you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
Looking at how you try to evolve every year. And I've loved watching your group and just the tweaks that you make on a year-to-year basis. When does that start in the offseason with Lyle?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different stages. I think the first one is you come out of the season and you kind of have some ideas of things that you want to tighten up, do a little bit better, areas where you felt like schematically you could improve, right? And that's the first part, and that's just straight X's and O's, and you're studying tape from other colleges, NFL teams, whatever that case may be. And then I think the second part of it, though, and this is, I think, what we have done well over the years is, then you start working with your guys, and you've got to start figuring out, okay, how is this defense going to stop people, right? Not just X's and O's. Now we have human beings in these positions, and they have certain things that they do really well, and certain things that maybe can be exploited. And how do we set the defense up for this group? And I think that process is ever changing, right? It's all the way through spring into fall camp, and then maybe even a little bit into the beginning of the season when you start seeing it match against other people and other personnels.
That was Mike Elko on Greg McElroy's Always College Football podcast. That was just part one of our Listen In. Part two will be at 12:35 coming up in about 50 minutes. Stay tuned for that. We've got a lot more going on the Louie Belina Show here today on the D4 Land Services hotline right at noon. We will have former Aggie baseball player Travis Chestnut going to talk a lot about this past season, his baseball journey. A lot to talk about with Travis. Looking forward to that. The ticket booth will be open. Keep your ears sharp and listening for that. Brought to you by Dixie Tire Company. We are inside the Charles Schwab studio here on the Louie Belina Show. In uncertain times, Charles Schwab remains invested in their clients by offering personalized guidance and clarity. Contact Mark and College Station to get answers to your questions or learn more at schwab.com/College Station.
The Money Machine Back to School. It's your chance to win $5,000, and it starts July 27th.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the Louie Belina Show here on the Zone, 1150 AM, 93.7 FM. If you want to have your thoughts heard, be sure to text us at 979-693-1150. Drop your thoughts into the Texas Mobile One Lube Express inbox. Last segment of the 11 o'clock hour, about 7 minutes away from our conversation with Travis Chestnut, former Aggie baseball player. Going to be a good time. Looking forward to that. Speaking of Aggie baseball, the transfers have continued to pour in for Coach Michael Early and his staff. We have not talked about Jace Evangelista, Nate Savoy, or Wade Cooper. Three names who I think will have pretty big impact on the season in 2027. So for those of y'all who haven't been paying attention, we now have 7, I believe, transfers that have announced their intentions to play for Texas A&M in 2027. Sorry, 6. The first was Jack Bell. I think that was the day after the portal opened. He was an Aggie on the 2024 team, coming back from TCU. He'll probably be the second baseman this year, but definitely going to contribute somewhere in the infield. He'll be a senior. Lane Arroyos from Western Kentucky, first baseman, also going to be a senior. Hit .360 at Western Kentucky in 2026. Only 6 homers, but I think at Olsen Field he'll have an opportunity to hit a lot more. Johnny Nuanez might be the one I'm most excited about on the pitching side anyway. Right-hander from Wichita State. Went 6-2 with a 2.56 ERA this year. 58 strikeouts in 56 innings. I think he'll probably be in the rotation. I think Coach Barry Enright did a very good job convincing him that this was the place to develop, and I'm really excited to see how Coach Enright develops these players. Jace Evangelista, as I mentioned, senior from UNLV, had a lot of strikeouts, did struggle giving up some runs, but definitely shown a lot of potential. And again, a guy that can be developed. I think he'll probably end up in the bullpen, but we'll see. And then the biggest name, catcher Nate Savoy from Clemson. Will be a junior in the upcoming season. 329 batting average, 16 homers, 52 RBIs. He was either the number 1 or number 2 player in the portal, depending on who you asked. He's going to be a big contributor to this offense. I think he'll probably bat 3 hole, maybe 4th. We'll see. most likely going to start at catcher. We'll see what happens if Bear Harrison decides to come back. Savoy also has experience in the outfield. He's playing summer ball right now in the Cape, and I think he's playing a little bit of right field in those games. So we'll see where he ends up slotting in defensively, but he's definitely going to be a huge contributor with the bat for the 2027 Aggies. Really excited about him. I think he'll probably be a first-round draft pick next year, especially if he has a great year in the SEC. And the most recent one, a sophomore from Texas State, Wade Cooper, native of Del Rio, Texas, one of the most coveted players in the portal on the pitching side of things, right-handed pitcher, went 7-3 with a 4.73 ERA, 73 strikeouts in 23 appearances. That's a lot of 7s and 3s. Cooper looks to be a huge contributor this year. I'll be interested to see if we end up having him in the rotation or maybe he's the closer next year. I think a lot of that depends on whether or not Clayton Freshcorn comes back to the squad. Freshcorn will definitely be drafted in July. We'll see how high he's drafted, and that's going to be what decides whether or not he comes back to A&M. It'll be interesting because college closers don't always get drafted super high. But anyway, really excited about this transfer portal class. I think there's a little more to come. But that's about all the time we have here in this hour. We will be back with Travis Chestnut, former Aggie baseball player. You're listening to the Louie Belina Show on The Zone, presented by CC Electric.